What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Nerdy Mark channel. I am Sid the Nerdy Mark, and today I have your review of AEW Dynamite and NXT. So before we begin, let us get into the question mark and let me read one of your answers. Now, the question I did ask last week was, do you think that War Games should stay on NXT or should it go to AEW? And I got an answer once again from Tim Farley. He's been really coming in clutch with his answers. So this one, of course, is no different. I think he had a very interesting one. He said that it was created by his father, Dustin Rhodes, Cody's father. Dusty Rhodes, Cody's father. It should be in AEW. Or he can be more like his daddy, I guess he means daddy, and create something new and innovative. I can see that. I think that would be a little bit more interesting, just to show that they are cut from a different cloth. I think a new match type would be really interesting. I mean, look at what they've already done for their own format of the Battle Royal. A new form of a cage match or a new form of a match of any kind would be really cool. So yeah, I think that's a good answer. Thank you, Tim. But look forward to this week's question mark at the end of this video. But for now, let's dive right in to this week's wrestling shows. I guess I can't say WWE Network shows anymore, so I'll think of something to talk about, say here. But anyway, let's begin with this week's flagship wrestling shows, starting with Dynamite. So we kick off AEW Dynamite with the Young Bucks taking on the Private Party. This is the first round and the first match of the AEW Tag Team Tournament, which I believe will take place even before Full Gear. I think we're going to have new Tag Team Champions. I believe that's the plan, but if it goes all the way up to Full Gear and that's where we crown our new Tag Champs, that's fine with me too. Anyway, really good match here. I really liked the contrast of style. I liked how it was not even a contrast of style. It almost felt like Nick Jackson and Matt Jackson were just looking in a mirror, only not. If you know that reference, let me know in the comments. There's a bit of psychology in here too, because the Bucks were, you know, it's almost like they were looking at their younger selves in a mirror, and they all honestly were getting kind of frustrated and even at times desperate. I would say that they were even healing it up a little bit, especially Matt. He was definitely healing it up quite a bit in this match, just, you know, punching and just slapping the hell out of especially Mark Quinn, and, you know, just disrespecting both of them. It was really interesting to see, especially because those were the guys who really campaigned for Private Party to join AEW. A match did finally end, though, with Matt and Nick going for the Meltzer driver, but Isaiah Cassidy on the outside pulling Nick from the apron, and this allowed Mark Quinn to get the roll-up. 1, 2, 3. Private Party advance to the next round, and I'm really excited for this. I honestly thought it was going to be the Young Bucks. I would have not been disappointed if it was, but I'm really glad it's Private Party. I'm really warming up to this team. I personally do want them to go all the way and take Tag Team Gold, but we will see as the weeks progress and as this tournament goes forward. Up next, we do have Le Champion, Chris Jericho, coming out with Santana and Ortiz, Sammy Guevara, and of course Jake Hager, making their way into the ring. Chris Jericho kind of explains his actions for last week, and, you know, saying that he specifically recruited these 4 people into his little team. He puts over everybody. He puts over Sammy G. He puts over Santana and Ortiz. When he introduces Jake Hager, there's a lot of "We the People" chants, and Chris Jericho says, "Hey, We the People sucks. That was a product of bad booking." And, you know, just a lot of shots at WWE. He finally gives a name for this newly formed faction. They are called the Inner Circle. I actually like that. That's pretty cool. He cuts a promo on Cody Rhodes, saying that he hates Dusty Rhodes, he hates his brother Dustin, and he hates Cody, he hates the entire Rhodes family. So he's going to basically beat the ever-living shit out of Cody, and they don't even censor. I think he even called him a son of a bitch too, so that was interesting. So surprising, it looks like they're allowing a certain level of swearing in AEW. I mean, it is a TV-14 product, so I guess that makes sense. Great promo here, really good to see Chris Jericho getting some time on the mic. I mean, he got some time on the mic on at Double or Nothing after he won, but you know, he got some uninterrupted time on the mic, and I loved this. So this was great stuff. Really excited for the Inner Circle. I wonder if we're going to have a babyface faction to combat this newly formed heel faction. And speaking of Le Champion, Chris Jericho, we have Darby Allin taking on Jimmy Havoc, and the winner of this match gets to be the #1 contender for the AEW World title next week. This was a good match. I didn't really think it was amazing, frankly. I'm not gonna lie, I do feel like, you know, since both of these men are very much used to fighting in like extremely hardcore style matches where anything and everything goes, I feel that the lack of a, you know, no disqualification rule did kind of hold these two men back just a little bit. Maybe it's my ignorance. Maybe I haven't seen enough of Jimmy Havoc and Darby Allin outside of AEW. That's probably my fault, and I apologize. But for me, just seeing it for what it was, you know, seeing their previous matches, even the match that Allin had with Cody, that didn't have a no DQ stipulation, but that still felt pretty brutal. But then again, Cody can carry a lot of people to a good match. Since these two are primarily, like I said, known for their hardcore stuff, I felt that both these men felt like they were fighting with a bit of a handicap. Despite that, it was still a pretty decent match, and both men did absolutely make it work. It looks like Jimmy Havoc was pretty hungry in this match because he kept on biting at Darby Allin's hand. So we got a little bit of that hardcore stuff in, so that was fine. Though I'm a little disappointed that there was no staple gun, but that's okay. But the match, however, did finally end with Darby Allin, despite all that punishment, despite almost losing his fingers. He finally hits the coffin drop on to Jimmy Havoc to put him away and become the #1 contender for the AEW World title. So next week we will have Darby Allin versus Chris Jericho for the AEW Championship. Next up, we do have a women's tag team match. Bea Priestley and Emi Sakura teaming up to take on the AEW Women's Champion, Riho, and Britt Baker, baby. Yes, I'm going to keep doing that. This was a fine match for what it was. I didn't really think it was anything spectacular. Nothing really to write home about here. I'm going to grade these matches just like I would grade an NXT match, okay? So just because I know AEW's new, it's the hot new thing, but I'm still going to look at these matches objectively. Just because it's a new product does not mean I'm going to be lenient, okay? So just putting that out there. But anyway, I didn't really, honestly, thought it was a fine match for what it was. I enjoyed it again, but it just really didn't do much for me. Frankly, it was good. That's all I really can say. We had some good spots on the outside. You know, Priestley and Sakura working together to try to incapacitate Britt Baker and whatnot. Clearly trying to give a disadvantage to that team. But finally, the match did end with Britt Baker putting Emi Sakura in a submission, and finally Sakura tapping out. And afterwards, we do have a bit of a stare down between Priestley and Britt Baker. I do think that these two women are going to have a match at Full Gear. I would love to see that. Up next, we do get the chairman of AEW, Shawn Spears, taking on Jon Moxley. Now, Shawn Spears is, of course, accompanied by Tully Blanchard, as always. Pac is on commentary at this point. He's kind of complaining that he doesn't get any opportunities despite his amazing win-loss record in AEW, and also the fact that he hasn't been pinned in 2 years. So, good match here. I think both men just absolutely were brutalizing each other despite no DQ rules. This is exactly what I wish Darby Allin versus Jimmy Havoc was. We have Shawn Spears showing a much more of a vicious side to himself. Of course, we saw this at All Out when he faced off against Cody, and even at Fyter Fest, right? Yeah, even at Fyter Fest where he hit the chair shot onto Cody Rhodes. I mean, like, so yeah, he's pretty vicious. You know, interesting to see this side of Shawn Spears. When he was in WWE as Ty Dillinger, he was coming in doing the perfect 10 thing and just being a happy, jumpy little babyface. So now he's just a total badass heel, so I like it. So I actually am taking Shawn Spears a little bit more seriously. Jon Moxley, what can I say, man? He just has not missed a beat, even though, you know, his first match back since his MRSA injury, and still hasn't missed a step. He's got a little band-aid on his elbow, but he's fine. So I loved seeing Jon Moxley in the ring again. It's just been so long. The match finally ended with Jon Moxley hitting the paradigm shift onto Shawn Spears to win the match. Now afterwards, we did have Kenny Omega coming out with a broom and a baseball bat, both covered in barbed wire, and Jon Moxley makes his way to the entrance ramp. Kenny Omega throws the bat at Moxley's feet, goading him to pick it up. Moxley picks it up. Pac from behind comes in with a chair to Kenny's back, and kind of just, signals to Jon Moxley to finish him off, which Jon doesn't really want to do. He wants to take care of Kenny when he's fresh, and I love that side of Jon Moxley, that he's looking for a fight, but he wants the best of Kenny Omega, not, Kenny Omega lying prone on the floor. And I like that. That's a really cool attribute that they gave for Jon Moxley. But I do feel like they may make Moxley versus Kenny a triple threat match, adding Pac into the mix. I'd be totally fine with that. That would be so awesome. But let's see what happens. And finally, we do have our main event. We have Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara taking on Dustin Rhodes and Hangman Page in a pretty good match. I thought this was really cool. We had Dustin and Hangman getting the advantage early on. We did have Jake Hager in, kind of basically being like security for this match for, of course, mainly his Inner Circle buddies. And by the way, Inner Circle finally does have t-shirts, and they look awesome. I mean, just a lot of spots in this match. Again, I did forget to take notes, as I was also doing my Full Gear challenge during this match, during this show. So I was actually doing my workout while I was watching AEW. So I apologize for the inconvenience. It was good for what it was. A lot of some good tag team wrestling here. I mean, all four of these guys, they know what they're doing in the ring. So I would suggest just go watch this match. But I would say one spot I did really particularly enjoy was in the beginning when Dustin just went after Chris Jericho, even though he tagged in Sammy G. He just went and just battered Chris Jericho, threw him, across the barricade. And then Sammy G tried to hit an aerial move, but Dustin did hit a huge uppercut to Sammy and just taking him out. I'm a sucker for anti-air attacks. All out chaotic action here. Finally, Jake Hager does get involved, and it helps. It is, of course, to the benefit of the heels, because Jericho does hit the Judas effect onto Dustin and wins the match. Afterwards, the rest of the Inner Circle come out, beat up on Dustin and Page. Cody Rhodes comes out and tries to even out the odds a little bit. MJF comes out, picks up the steel chair that they were using. It looks like he's going to hit Cody, because they are holding Cody Rhodes for MJF to hit them, because, they want him to join the Inner Circle. But no, he completely demolishes everybody with the steel chair until, of course, Jericho hits the Judas effect onto MJF. Then we have the Bucks coming out to beat up on Santana and Ortiz. And finally, Darby Allin with the exclamation point. He comes in on a skateboard, throws it at Chris Jericho, and starts beating the shit out of him. So the faces do kind of get some sort of comeuppance. But we do end the night with the Inner Circle walking towards the back, and Chris Jericho saying that he will see Cody on November 9th. And he says that he will see Darby Allin next week, you son of a bitch. So that was great. Great show overall. But now, let's see how NXT stacked up. NXT does begin with Lio Rush taking on Drew Gulak for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. I forgot to mention this, but yeah, it is now officially the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. So it looks like the Cruiserweight division is being assimilated throughout NXT and NXT UK. Very good match here. I thought that, both these guys just brought it to the table. Drew Gulak, just because he doesn't do aerial attacks or flippy shit, endearingly known, I guess. Like, just because he doesn't do that does not mean that he cannot move fast in the ring, because this match had Drew Gulak doing some of the most fastest maneuvers I've ever seen. Like, some quick, fast tactics by both Rush and Gulak, a technician versus a high flyer. Always a good combo there, but please watch this match. I highly recommend it. One of my favorite matches of the night. But the match finally does end when Lio Rush does hit the springboard stunner and a final hour, that's the name of his finisher, the final hour to win the match and become your new NXT Cruiserweight Champion. After the match, Drew Gulak snatches the title off of Lio and looks at Lio. Lio looks at him and says, I won it fair and square. But, of course, he gives it back to Lio. Gulak does and shakes his hand as a show of respect. That was cool. I like that. I'm still a little confused as to why they put the title on Lio Rush already. I get it, you know, he's back and whatnot, but I do wish they built him up a little bit more, and then maybe we could have given him the Cruiserweight title, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know why they did that. Maybe because they wanted to say, oh, big title change here. Were any titles changed on AEW? I don't think so. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're still having that mentality of, you know, trying to compete with AEW. But, yeah, we'll see. But either way, congratulations to Lio Rush. I wonder what the future holds for Drew Gulak, though. Next up, we do have Rhea Ripley taking on Aaliyah in what was essentially a squash match. Nothing too much to talk about here. You know, Aaliyah does get a couple of licks in. She tries to scratch the back of Rhea Ripley, but that just pisses her off even more. Rhea actually hits a kind of an interesting kind of a submission slash move. You know, she kind of locks Aaliyah's legs like this and kind of slammed her down and then just had her be basically, you know, she did a submission in midair, and of course Aaliyah did tap out pretty quickly. After the match, we had her getting on the mic and calling out Shayna Baszler and, you know, basically saying the same thing she said when she debuted on NXT, that she's tapped, napped, and snapped all the women here in the NXT division except for me, and that's not going to happen, and she wants the NXT Women's title. Mic drop, all that good stuff. Great promo by Rhea Ripley, short and sweet. I really, like I said, I do hope that Rhea is the one who dethrones Shayna Baszler. Next up, we do have Breezango taking on Everrise. Now, Breezango's entrance was actually really, really cool. I liked it. It was like them wearing construction construction outfits with, you know, two girls bringing them into the ring. That was pretty cool. I just want to say this. Should NXT and AEW ever work together to put on like a one-off kind of a show? I think that's probably the most we'll ever get, should that ever happen. I just want Breezango versus the Best Friends and Street Profits versus Private Party. So if that ever happens, give me what I want! Everrise's music hits, but the Forgotten Sons come out and they've beaten up both members of that team. And now Cutler and Blake enter the fray along with Jackson Riker, and they get in the ring, and that's the match that we have. Decent match, nothing to write home about here either. Didn't really care much for this one. So yeah, I mean, it was fine for what it was. I mean, Forgotten Sons, I almost forgot them and whatnot. But we do have Riker getting involved a little bit, and this allows Cutler and Blake to pick up the victory over Breezango. So that was that pretty much. Next up, we do have Cameron Grimes taking on Boa. This was very much a squash match because Cameron Grimes distracts the referee, tells him to look over there, and hits a double knee stomp onto Boa's chest. 1, 2, 3, Cameron Grimes wins, and he gets the heck out of Dodge because Killian Dane enters the ring, and he turns around and starts beating up on Boa, hits 2 Vader bombs, and throws him onto the announce table and says, "This is only the beginning. Yes, we get it. You watch Being the Elite, and now you're just modifying Kenny Omega's catchphrase. Good for you, Killian Dane." But anyway, all joking aside, I'm looking forward to see where this goes. I don't know if this is going to be a program between Boa and Killian Dane. Should be an interesting match, but I don't know what they're doing with Killian Dane right now. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying I'm just curious to see what they're going to do, you know, as the weeks progress. We now have the NXT North American Champion Roderick Strong taking on Isaiah Swerve Scott in a fantastic match. I loved every bit of this thing. This was almost this is just exactly what I wanted, honestly, between these two men. You know, it's just a lot more. This is like actually one of my first times watching Isaiah Swerve Scott. I really have not watched much of his work as Shane Strickland, so please forgive me. I like Isaiah Swerve Scott. He's a great wrestler. He reminds me a lot of Booker T, just because of his reliance on a lot of kicks, and you know that's kind of what it is. We also learned that he served 8 years in the United States military, so thank you for your service, Isaiah Swerve Scott. Really appreciate that. But anyway, just a lot of good technical work by Roderick Strong, again, aiming for the back of Isaiah Swerve Scott and whatnot. So that was good stuff. Undisputed Era do come out while Scott has the advantage. They don't really get involved in the match. They don't go and get in the ring or anything, but they're kind of just cheering Roderick on. And, you know, at one point, Scott does get distracted by the Era. I mean, they are coming closer and closer towards the ring, and this does distract Swerve Scott. And he's like, you know, hey, stay back, or whatever. They're like, oh, okay. This distraction does allow Roderick Strong to finally hit the end of Heartache to win the match. Afterwards, we do have an appearance by the Velveteen Dream, and he's not with a bunch of pretty girls this time. He's standing on top of the entrance ramp with a little, kind of a balcony kind of a thing that they have built just for the Dream. So he basically embarrasses Roderick Strong because Roderick Strong took a picture of himself a la Shawn Michaels when he won the title, and, you know, he put it around his crotch, kind of like Burt Reynolds, basically. Dream basically photoshops the belt, you know, snaps his fingers, and then he makes the belt disappear off of Roderick Strong's pelvic region, and there's like a big X down there. So he says basically, everyone will know when I take the title off of you why Roderick Strong doesn't measure up. So very subtle penis joke by Velveteen Dream. Wholesome stuff. Tommaso Ciampa then comes out. He has his crutch, and he grabs a steel chair. Where did we see this before? And Undisputed Era get the heck out of Dodge, and he sets up the chair, sits down on it, Tommaso Ciampa does, picks up the microphone, and he just says, Goldie, Daddy's home. And that was magnificent, and I loved it. So welcome back, Tommaso Ciampa. It looks like he's a babyface now, because next week he is going to face off against Angel Garza. So, I mean, who's a heel, so yeah, I mean, interested to see Tommaso Ciampa as more of a babyface, but, you know, still kind of retaining his character, so I'm happy about that. Up next, we had Bianca Belair taking on Dakota Kai in a relatively short match. Dakota does get some offense in, but for the most part, it is all Bianca, so that's there. But, you know, she does finally beat Dakota Kai with the KOD, and she gets on the microphone now, and she says Rhea Ripley, she's going to go and beat Shayna Baszler? Girlfriend, not on my watch. Get in formation. I'm so sorry. That was offensive. So she basically is challenging Rhea Ripley now, so it looks like we are going to get a match between these two down the line. I actually am very excited for the prospect of a Ripley versus Bianca match. I think that would be really, really amazing because, you know, both these women are phenomenal athletes. Bianca Belair is still a little bit green in my opinion, but she's really, really good too. So I cannot wait for this match, honest to God. Looking forward to see where this goes. I wonder how these two women are going to factor into the NXT Women's title picture, but again, only time will tell. And finally, our main event, we have the Ring General Walter taking on the Time Splitter Kushida. Although they don't call him the Time Splitter anymore, that was only his moniker in New Japan, but I kind of wish he would use that here. Anyway, fan-freaking-tastic match, absolutely worthy of a main event. Please go seek this match out if you did not do so. But I thought it was great, a good David and Goliath sort of match with you know, Walter using his traditional style of wrestling versus you know, Kushida doing his, you know, kind of mixed bag of wrestling, some technical stuff, high-flying stuff, MMA stuff, just really bringing it to Walter, to be frank with you. He absolutely gave Walter a run for his money. It was awesome. I thought it was just really, really awesome. We had Kushida putting Walter in the Kimura lock, well, the hoverboard lock, actually, a couple of times, but Walter was able to power out of it, Finally, he hits a dropkick and a powerbomb. 1, 2, 3. The NXT UK champion wins the match. And of course, we finally end out NXT with Walter and the rest of Imperium doing the, I'm not going to do the pose, but doing the Imperium pose and saying goodnight to the NXT universe. So overall, I'm not going to lie. I think both shows were absolutely solid this week. I thought Dynamite did a great job, and as well as NXT. But I'm going to say that Dynamite slightly edged out NXT this week. I actually did enjoy it a little bit more than NXT. You know, I'm not saying that it's becoming my favorite show or anything. I'm just saying that, you know, Dynamite absolutely, definitely beat NXT. Not to say that NXT was terrible or anything. It was also a really good show. I just think, honestly, the presentation and the big match feel of many of the matches on Dynamite really did help them this week. So that was really good. And also having some title implications on one of the matches, that also really helped. So, yeah, I mean, I think that AEW was kind of did edge out NXT just by a hair this time around. But as far as matches of the night goes on AEW Dynamite, absolutely the Private Party versus Young Bucks was a great match. Moxley versus Shawn Spears was really good. And of course, our main event with Hangman and Dustin taking on Jericho and Sammy Guevara. Great stuff. Love the chaos in the end. Of course, the bit with Kenny Omega after the Moxley-Spears match was also really good. Having Pac getting involved in this feud, that was great stuff as well. As far as NXT is concerned, even though I don't agree with the decision, Lio Rush versus Drew Gulak, really good match there. I also really did enjoy Walter versus Kushida, not to mention the match between Roderick Strong and Isaiah Swerve Scott. So those are some good matches there. And now finally, it is time for the question mark of the week. So I kind of alluded to this in the beginning of my NXT segment, where, you know, it really did feel like NXT was trying to compete with AEW. And Chris Jericho had some comments to say about this. He basically said that he doesn't feel like AEW is at war with NXT because they're just trying to put on the best show possible. So my question to you guys is, watching for the, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but watching AEW and NXT, if you've been watching them back to back, do you feel as if NXT is too concerned about overtaking AEW, that it possibly hurts the quality of their shows? Yes or no, let me know in the comment section below, and your answer could be featured on next week's video. So that pretty much wraps it up for this week. Those are my thoughts on AEW and NXT. Let me know what you guys thought about both shows in the comment section below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on social media, and tell your friends about the Nerdy Mark. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for your continued support. This is Sid, signing off. You guys take care. Bye-bye.